Welcome to the StoryADay podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie here from the StoryADay podcast. We are entering week 3 of StoryADay May 2020, the 10th anniversary, all that good stuff, yada yada. Now, obviously, I don't know if you're writing along with us because I'm not spying on you and I'm not asking you to prove it to me anywhere. You can leave a comment at the blog and let us know how it's going. That's great. If you want that accountability from other people, that's a really good way to do it. But maybe you've been writing all along and I'd be really interested to hear how it's going for you. Or maybe you've been thinking about writing, but now you're like, but now it's what is this as I'm recording it? It's the 16th of May. It's too late for me to write a story a day in May, so maybe I'll just do it next year. Well, I would say to you, the invitation stands to jump in right now and take a look at the daily prompts, see if they do anything for you, or think about dedicating the rest of this month to your writing. We're going into week 3, which means I've got a bunch of prompts that are aimed at helping you work on particular skills in your writing. This week, we've got some prompts about character. We've got some prompts about conflict, some prompts about point of view. I'll be inviting you to think about dialogue and writing with all the senses, things like that. So this week's going to be an interesting one to come over to the blog and see the prompts. You're going to see prompts from people like Tobias S. Backel, the science fiction speculative writer. You are going to see prompts from Jonathan Maybury and many other people who've given me really interesting things. Gregory Frost gave me a really interesting prompt. Art Taylor kicked the week off. So yeah, come over to the blog and have a look at them. See if they do anything for you. Even if you haven't committed to writing a story a day in May, I think you'll get quite a lot out of dedicating some time this week to doing your writing. Before the challenge started, I did this little workshop called The Writer Code, where I introduced a framework for approaching your writing on different days and at different stages. And really in the first week of Story a Day, we focused on the W of the Writer Code. Just write something, right? Get to your desk, practice getting to your desk and writing every day. In week 2, I invited you, and if you were listening to the podcast last week, I think I talked about this, I invited you to see what you could refine as you go into the next week. You've got the hang of writing, you're going to refine it a little bit now. This week is the week where I invite you to think about what you can improve. So take all the lessons you've learned from your past writing and think about the things that you are not confident about, not comfortable that you're doing your best with, and see if you can focus on them. So like I say, we're going to look at character this week. I'm going to encourage people to write a couple of stories that are really character based, and we don't have to worry too much about the plot because there's a character with a conflict and therefore that's going to bring out an interesting plot. But just focusing on that one aspect gives you the freedom to say this story doesn't have to be perfect, which is what I'm trying to do here at StoryADay May, is twofold. It is to get you to write a lot so that you get lots of practice and that you get to build a practice and figure out how to fit it into your life. But I also want to kill your perfectionism. I was in a meeting yesterday, somebody was talking about Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, and this is someone who's not what you would traditionally think of as a writer. And he was talking about Bird by Bird. So I scurried over to my shelf and I pulled it off the shelf and I looked at it. And it's, my copy is so old that it's all yellow around the edge of the pages. But I realized I hadn't read it for a while. But the thing that everybody remembers from that book, there's 2 things. There's a concept of working bird by bird. Just write the next thing. Just finish the thing that you're working on now. Don't focus on the fact that there's a whole publishing industry out there, or that there's loads of other writers, or that you've got to finish this 80,000 word novel. Just write the next thing. So that's the bird by bird part. The other thing it's famous for is Anne Lamotte's concept of the shitty first draft, which, I apologise, I'm quoting. It's one of the hardest things to let yourself do, and especially, oddly enough, when you aren't writing often, because the stakes are so high for every piece. If you're only writing, you carve out an hour a month or an afternoon a month, it's possible that the stakes will become so high for you that it feels really hard to let yourself write that shitty first draft. Story a day is a great way to get over that. If you're trying to write a story every day, they're not going to be great. Some of them might be. People always discover a couple of stories they've written during the month and they go, actually, that was pretty good. But you don't have to. Like the deal is, if you turn up every day for a month and write, you are allowed to write bad stories. You're allowed to write 2-sentence stories some days. You can absolutely do the whole month writing 100-word stories. I've done that before. There's a craft to getting a story down, to keeping a story to that scale. It's not actually that quick, but it's manageable, and that might be one of the things that you allow yourself to do, which allows you to get the words on the page and lowers your expectations, allows you to get to that first draft that is messy. So I really wanted to encourage you this week. This is just going to be a little quick podcast this week because I've got so much going on, and StoryADay is rolling. We've got our Superstars group going, and they're just having. I'm having so much fun with them. They're having so much success. And this morning in our little group, a whole bunch of people just posted about stories, that just are being published this week, and it's kind of amazing when you find other people who are taking the thing that you love seriously, and they just sort of welcome you in and lift you up and say, yeah, you can do this. Of course you can submit. Of course you can finish that story. Of course you can start that story. It's really great to be around other people for some portion of every day who just get it, that it's difficult in so many ways to write, that it is difficult to submit, that it's difficult to edit, that it's, everything about writing is kind of more difficult than it looks, because everybody can write, right? By the time you're 7 or 8, most people can write. And most people read. And they read polished drafts of stories that make everything look easy, and they make everything clever. And, if you read cozy mysteries, they're so fun and funny and clever, and you just think that these people must be geniuses, and you don't see any of the hard work that goes into writing. So I encourage you to come and leave comments at storyaday.org, especially this month. This is our most active month in the comments. It's when people are turning up and supporting each other. So I would encourage you to come and talk about writing in the blog comments. And just surround yourself with other people who are in this world and who get it and will support you and will commiserate with you when it is hard. And this week the prompts this week are going to be challenging, in the sense that I'm going to be challenging you to work on things that you feel you aren't great at yet. And it's a good thing, but it can be a little emotional and a little vulnerable. So I really do encourage you to come and talk about it in the blog comments, or if you have a great writers group, go and talk to them about it. We don't have to do this alone. You can write by yourself. I really don't think it's very easy or sensible to try and be a writer by yourself. Yeah, it's a solitary act, or maybe you've got a partner and it's not a solitary act, but it can be a solitary thing, you alone in your room with your keyboard or your pen. That's the writing part, that's the flow part, that's getting the drafts out. Everything else after that, you're part of the community, because you're reaching out to readers, you're reaching out to other people who can support you, other people who've got contacts in groups, or if you want to get into publishing, you need to be reaching out and making connections with people. So start here, It's low commitment. Just hop over to the blog, leave a comment on what somebody else has said, start to make friends, start to network. Going into week 3 of Story a Day, there's another full week after this where I'll be throwing at you some of the fun little prompts that are, weird little story shapes and off the wall kind of non-narrative things which make it a little fun after 3 weeks of writing. You may have been sucked into the trap of writing, narrative stories, and you get to have some fun next week. And then there's just those 3 little days of week 5 where we wrap things up. So we're right here in the middle. It's day 16 as I record this. This is your chance to say, what do you want to do with the rest of the month? Do you want to write more? Do you want to stop? I don't think you want to stop. Whether or not you want to write a story a day, I don't think that you're going to stop writing. So I would invite you to think about where you want to be in a few months or in a year, and think about how you can use this moment to take that next little step, write that next little thing, describe that next little bird. I hope that your writing is flowing. I hope that you are well and that this has been helpful. And I hope to see you in the blog comments. Most of all, keep writing.
Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week. And of course, keep writing.